Hi there, everyone, and good evening. Tonight, as previously discussed, I'm going to be speaking and hopefully having a conversation with people. I do want people to join in with this. I want to talk about being brave and rising up to face the challenges of our generation, and boy do we have some. It really does matter how we behave, how we think, what we believe, what we hope for. I'm talking about that last week. So tonight really would like to concentrate on what is the inspirational person's way of looking at the way that the world is. I believe that one of the ways that I can do that tonight is by bringing to your attention and mine for a few minutes this evening the inauguration poem from the Joe Biden when he became president. So it's a 24-year-old woman's poem, Amanda Gorman, The Hill We Climb. And although she's obviously referring to the American nation and she is in support of a Democrat in what she's saying, I think there's some valuable lessons here for us to learn and to take note of in these present difficult and dark times. It's almost like she was setting the stage for what was to come with the pandemic and with the war in Ukraine. And for that reason, I would really like us to think about these words and their meaning in the context of where we are as a world, not just as she keeps talking about the nation, but where she says nation, I'm thinking in terms of humanity, the whole of us. The thing about America is that that there is an idealism that 250 years ago, 1776, the founding fathers had some very high ideals for how the nation was going to be different from any other nation that had existed on the planet prior to. Now, America isn't without fault. America has its problems and it went off track. If you go to the founding fathers documents, you'll find the aspirations are much better than the actual practice of it. But nevertheless, that intention was set 250 years ago. And the poem, The Hill We Climb, Amanda Gorman, is echoing a lot of the feelings that were around at the time of the statement of independence. So just think about it in terms of today, in terms of your own life, not necessarily in terms of America. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? This is the work of someone who's wanting to be inspired. This is what we're here to do. We're here to find light in the never-ending shade. And any conversation about what's going on in the world, whether it's locally or within our own countries or globally, any conversation that we have it's never that far away from things are going not too well, and isn't it a horrible place, and won't it be better when all these horrible things have ended? However, the inspirational person says, where can we find light? Not let's talk about darkness. Where can we find light in the never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. We've learned that it isn't all sweetness and light out there, that there is good reason to believe that things can and will go wrong. So in light of the fact that these things are true, that we have to carry loss, that we must wade through the sea and brave the belly of the beast, and even when the quiet comes, it isn't always peaceful, because it can be the peace before the storm, the calm before the storm. And we don't always find justice. So, okay, what are we going to do about it? And yet, Amanda Gorman says, the dawn is ours before we knew it. There's something beautiful about the dawning of a new day. It always feels great. The anticipation of what could be today. It could be an amazing day, a beautiful day. And especially if you've got the sunrise, it can make you feel glad all over. The dawn is ours. It belongs to us. It's something that we're here to enjoy, not to fear. The dawn is ours. Before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed, she says a nation, but I say a world that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. Do you see where the inspiration is in this? I'm getting goosebumps thinking about this, that we are not just sat there at the dawn, helpless and hopeless, and maybe it's going to be a good day, maybe it's not. We've already weathered so much. We've been through so much as a people on planet Earth. And we're not broken. We're just unfinished. And today is another day to get up and to try our best to finish what we began, what we wanted to achieve, what our hopes and dreams were. It's never a day to wake up and say, I'm giving up, I've had enough of this. It's never that day. The dawn is ours. And because we've weathered and witnessed humanity as not being broken, but simply unfinished, we, she says, the successors of a country, I say a world, and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. So there's so much that you can dream of doing that may not come to pass, but something equally as wonderful may happen ahead of schedule. 24 years of age and reading your own poem to inspire a whole nation, a whole planet. I mean, there's enough inspiration in here for all of the world, all of humanity, not just the American nation. And yes, she says, we are far from polished. We're far from pristine. But that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colours, characters and conditions of man. Obviously, again, referring to the founding document of the nation that of America, but surely this should and can be our human desire, that even though we're far from polished and far from pristine, we can still strive to form a place on planet Earth, a human environment where people can have purpose, and they can and humanity, which is composed of many cultures and colours and characters and conditions of men and women, can become more than what it was before. It can fulfill the hopes and dreams of all of its citizens. So she says, we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. So instead of seeing all the problems that separate us from each other, we could instead, according to the poem of Amanda Gorman, we could look at what stands before us. What is available to us? What could we do with humanity, with our planet, if we just started being more proactive and bringing about our desires for peace and love and tranquility within the lives of all the people of planet Earth, and all the animals and birds and reptiles and fish and insects, etc. So we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. It's so easy to remember, there's a French statement, isn't there? Vive la différence. Isn't it beautiful, all the different qualities and quantities of life? Isn't it great that there's so many different things that can be in existence at the same time? But we don't want those differences to separate us. We close the divide because we know to put our futures first, we must first put our differences aside. This is the hill that we climb, Amanda Gorman's poem from Joe Biden's inauguration. There is a hill to climb. We're not where we're supposed to be as a race, as humanity. So then she goes on to say, we lay down our arms. Instead of holding our gun like that, instead of holding the gun, we lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. I think that is the desire of by far the majority, probably 95, 98% of humanity don't want war, don't want fighting, don't want disagreements. We lay down our arms so that we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. So harmony is a beautiful word. It's a musical word, obviously, but what it refers to is the fact that in a harmony, there are people singing different notes. And it's okay, because instead of being a cacophony of noise and horror, it's something beautiful. So it's okay for everyone to do things their own way, as long as it harmonizes, as long as we allow others to be themselves and they allow us to be ourselves. Let the globe, she is speaking globally now, it's not just for the American nation according to the poem. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew. So we're going to learn from the horrible things that are happening right now. That even as we grieved, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. We spoke about hope last week. Hope is so, so very important. And that even as we were tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. You see, that is just so so beautiful. We have it within our power. We have a choice every single day whether to sow division or to decide to be those who are on the side of harmony. And then she quotes scripture. She says, scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. So everyone on the earth, you know, this is the intention that we need to set forth in motion with our desires, with our wishes, with our lives, that we should and must envision that everyone's going to sit, like the Bible said, under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. There's no need to be afraid when everyone finds their place on the planet and doesn't feel threatened. There's no fear. And that's what we need to action each day with our lives, something that we can contribute to. We can have a big row and a falling out with somebody, or we can find common ground, find where we see things the same, and make a friend instead of an enemy. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. So the blade, it's like the sword, it's the fight. Victory is not going to be, there's no victory in using weapons. It just causes misery and sadness and gloom and despair and fear. No, the victory doesn't lie in the blade. It lies in all the bridges we've made. Every time we make friends, every time we reason with our enemies, every time we try and see the world from the perspective which is not ours, then we create a bridge to become all that we need to be for the world to be a place where each person has their own fig tree and vine to sit under. That is the promise to glade the hill we climb, if only we dare. Dare we do it? Dare we be? Dare we be those who climb this hill, that seek that better world, that better reality, that better place? It's possible. If people can make war, surely those of us who want to can make peace. Those of us who want to can make a better world. Surely it's within our power to do that. It isn't just possible for human beings to make a mess. It's possible for us to do good. The hill that we climb, if we only dare we climb the hill, dare we say, oh, instead of saying, and people do say, oh, it's too hard, it's too difficult, I'm giving up. It's so easy to give up. It's difficult to find the determination to continue to move forward when you're going uphill, it's difficult, but the determination will carry us forward. Those of us who are inspired, those of us who want a better world, this hill that we're climbing can be and will be a brighter day, a better planet for everyone. Those who would think of us as enemies, those that we might think because of the actions they're taking that they are our enemies, it'll be a better place for all of us, not just the ones who are seeking peace, but those who are even the ones who are bringing war into our world. It'll be a better place for them as well. It's just that they're going to have a lot more difficulty in realizing that it is in their interests to bring about peace, but it is. And now she's talking about America again, but I would suggest that we think about the whole planet. It's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. Being human is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. This effort very nearly succeeded. And she's obviously referring to January the 6th and what happened there. And like I said, she is speaking at the inauguration of a Democrat. So she's obviously seeing the world from that perspective. But nevertheless, what we can gain from reading this just now, that when something goes wrong, they always say, don't they, we must make sure that this, whatever bad thing that's happened, never happens again. And when we do that, how do we learn those lessons? We have to investigate what went wrong in the first place. We've got to know. And there's plenty of examples of things going wrong or away from peace and away from inspiration and away from love and away from hope. There's lots of illustrations from the past. We can look. It's the past, she says, we step into and how we repair it. You and I can look back into the history books, and we don't have to look that far back. Now we can look at the last week really and find out the different things that can and do go wrong in our world. And then knowing what's happened, we are then able to make sure it doesn't happen again. And we have to set in place things which will make sure that things don't go wrong again. And it's to do with human hearts in the end, really. And whatever has happened that is to the detriment of people is, I think, I'm going to oversimplify it now, is because of a lack of love. In this truth, the poem goes on, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. It's a juxtaposition, isn't it, that she's brought in. She's done a few of those within this poem. But instead of, we've got faith that as we, and hope, as we look forward into the future, that we will prevail, that peace will prevail, that inspiration will prevail, that love will prevail, that hope will prevail, that faith will prevail. And as we're doing that, the future has its eyes, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. That's a statement that you can preach it, can't you? This is the era of just redemption. You and I need to believe that this is the time for just redemption. And she says, we feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. But within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So it's in this inspiring view of the world and the way that history progresses from this moment on. It's in our hands, and history's watching us to see these great things that we individually and collectively can do to bring a better place about for humanity, a better world for humanity to live in. And so even though it is a terrifying hour, the power to author the new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves is here. We can do it. We can choose it. It can be our intention that this will be so. In Star Trek, Jean-Luc Picard, the captain of the Next Generation Enterprise, says, make it so. And he's telling them where to go with the ship and how to get there. And he just says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to author a new chapter. We're going to be the heirs that offer hope and laughter to ourselves. Make it so. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? I'll read that again. Whilst once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? That's how we feel many days in these past 10 years or so. There's been probably 15 years now. There's been many days where it's felt hopeless. It's felt like the world has gone crazy and there's nothing we can do about it. How could we possibly prevail over catastrophe, we kept saying. But now we're going to assert something different. How could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? That's hope. That's determination. That's faith. That's certainty. That is you and me saying, we're not having this anymore. We're going to be a peaceful planet, a better planet. I'm calling all those who believe, like I do, in a more inspired and more aware, awake world to join me in setting that as our intention, to assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? And then she goes on to say, we will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. The making it so, we're going to make it the way that we said it just now. A country, or you could say a world, that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Whatever we do, that's what we're leaving for the children and grandchildren who are with us today. My little Jake, 2 years old tomorrow. This is the world that we're leaving for him. It's so important to me to make sure that we're not going to march back to what was. We are going to make progress as humanity. A country that is bruised but whole. We're not denying the fact that things aren't all hunky-dory. We're bruised, but we are still whole, benevolent, but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Whatever we put into effect through our lives and our intention and our determination, that is what we leave for our children and grandchildren. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. If we merge mercy with might. It's not wrong to be strong. But what do you do with your strength? Do you go, look at me, I'm super fit, I'm super strong, I can do as much harm as I want to anybody, anytime. Look at me, I'm a big bully. Do I want to do that? No. Why? Because our blunders become the burdens of our children and grandchildren. We must merge mercy with might. So let us leave behind, she says, a country, I say a planet, better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, she says about herself, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the golden hills of the West. So it doesn't matter where you live, we're going to raise the wounded world into a wondrous one. She goes on, we will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people diverse and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. So Amanda Gorman, in this poem, The Hill We Climb, she's talking about the American nation, and therefore she's talking about all the different parts of the geography of the American continent, but it's equally true of all the different parts of the planet, that wherever we live, we leave behind a world that is better than the one that was left us. We raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The real reason why love doesn't prevail and why fear has us in its grasp is because we decide not to step out of the shade. We decide not to come out on fire, unafraid, and get on with what needs to be done to make sure the planet is in a better state for those who follow us. It's because of fear that we step back instead of step forward. We need to step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. There won't be the great new dawn that we thought was coming. You know, when the sun started to rise up over the hill and we saw the possibilities and the beauty of the new day, the sunrise, it's all going to come to nothing. It's all going to cloud over if we don't play our part. We free it. We free that dawn. All those possibilities that we become aware of at dawn each day, we can see the possibilities, but we are the ones that must make those possibilities come about. When the day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid, the new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. So this is a very, very challenging, inspirational poem. And as she stood there on the inauguration day, was it the 20th of January, 2021, I think it was. So we're only sort of 15 months into the new president's term of office. But it gave me goosebumps. A bit like the Obama speech that I was referring to last week about hope, the speech of Martin Luther King, where he said, I have a dream that one day my children will not be judged by the colour of their skin, but the content of their character. Amanda Gorman, her words made me tingle all over, because even though I'm not an American, I saw the inspirational power of her words. And that's why I decided that tonight I wanted to focus in on what she said and think about it. I wanted to have a conversation with somebody, and the invitation has gone out far and wide. Come and join me. I can't see if there's anyone watching the Facebook broadcast, but I have put the invitation there in the chat. So if there is someone watching this who wants to click on that link, you can come and have a chat with me now in the Zoom room, or you can put a message underneath. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read Amanda Gorman's poem again in its entirety, and I'm going to see if there's anyone joins me in the Zoom room, or alternatively anyone who comments in the Be Inspired chat. I've got the live chat open at the side of me, and if no one does, then I will thank you for your kind attention watching this, and I would love to read this in its entirety now. The hill we climb. Remember, she's speaking at Joe Biden's inauguration, and she's speaking about the American nation, but I would like us to think about the world, the whole of humanity, as we read this, as I read this. The hill we climb, Amanda Gorman. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just is isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colours, characters and conditions of man. So we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but to what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we were tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promise to glade the hill we climb, if only we dare. It's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. This effort very nearly succeeded, but while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust, for where we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. That is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised, but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and our inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the golden hills of the west. We will rise from the windswept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I wish you peace, and I wish you an inspired life where you can be who you were meant to be on this planet in the bringing about of a better world for our children and our grandchildren. Bye for now. Bye.